What do you do if you realise that you should have paid some tax and you haven't paid the tax? Do you take my approach, which is to try and come up with as many reasons as possible not to do anything? Or is it better to do something? And is there like a system you're supposed to follow?
So you could in principle bury your head in the sand. I personally wouldn't recommend it. If you do that and you end up with a nudge letter from HMRC and you then end up having to disclose that to them, it's going to be considered to be a prompted disclosure, which would mean that basically penalties will be higher than if you decide, actually, I've realised that this is the case and I want to come clean, I want to own up to it right now. So I would usually always recommend, if you realise that you've underpaid taxes, it's far easier to go to HMRC with their hands held high. I'm really sorry, I didn't realise. They might not necessarily forgive you and you might not be able to get rid of all penalties and interest, but it's by far better to do that. And
is it relatively straightforward to do it? I think they have an online system.
Yeah, they have an online system. So on the face of it, you could sit and work out where your position is at, and then register and make the disclosure immediately. You need to have a case reference number in order to be able to make payment of any amount that's outstanding. So the only difficulty with doing the disclosure and kind of submitting it on the same day is that you then have to wait maybe about 2 weeks for a case reference number so you can actually make payment. The alternative way is at the point when you realise that you do owe HMRC some money, you can notify them. So you can notify them that you want to make a disclosure.
And as soon as you've notified them, then you're into the bucket of unprompted disclosure, I guess.
Exactly. And if you've notified HMRC that you want to make a disclosure, you'll have 90 days to be able to make that disclosure without kind of creating any sort of additional penalties, etc. So I suppose it's one of those where in some instances when people think they might have got things wrong, they maybe want to just make sure and do a bit of research and make sure they can get their paperwork, etc. in place. I suppose normally 3 months would be enough time. But if it was a situation whereby they really thought it might take some time, they might want to hold off on notifying HMRC until they're more certain that they can turn it around within the 90 days. But as a general rule of thumb, notify them as soon as possible, because as soon as HMRC have written to you to say, we think you might have undisclosed income or gains, then I suppose at that stage it's prompted and the penalty rates are higher.
So if you think you've got some undisclosed income or gains and you're feeling a bit bad about it, it's good to get in touch with us. We do a lot of these disclosures. They can be a bit tedious, but ultimately what we find is our clients are so much happier when they've done it, because it's one of those little things that niggles at the back of your mind all the time until you've actually sorted it out. So yeah, get in touch.